The coronavirus pandemic has changed lives in profound ways, including houses of worship. The Rebound Indiana is RTV6's commitment to making sure systems in place are working to help people get back on their feet. Call 6 Investigates' Kara Kenny found churches in central Indiana applying for federal funding, which some say is an unprecedented move away from the separation of church and state.
The First Amendment lays out the Establishment Clause, separation of church and state. Most churches in Indiana do not pay most taxes, including property taxes, and many want to operate away from the prying eyes of government. But these are unique times. At a time when many Hoosiers need hope, churches are being forced to halt in-person services and go totally online. New Era Church on Indy's west side has nearly 2,000 members and a staff of 20 people. Pastor Clarence Moore says donations have taken a hit.
But overall, our offerings are down right at about 10%. And our capital giving is down about 15%.
So New Era Church reached out to the federal government for help. They applied for a loan under the Small Business Administration's Paycheck Protection Program. Loans churches and other nonprofits won't have to pay back as long as they're used for things like maintaining payroll, mortgage, and utilities. To Pastor Moore's surprise, the SBA approved New Era Church for a loan.
They give you 2.5 months worth of salary to keep your people on the team. And these funds that we got are going to kind of help us get through the summer if our online giving doesn't fall off too much in that process. So we were glad to get those funds. They were critical.
The SBA would not tell Call 6 Investigates how many churches in Indiana have applied for or been approved, saying the priority right now is on processing loans to get funds into folks' hands. We checked around and found several local churches who have applied and are still waiting, like Barnes United Methodist Church.
We have not heard back from the bank yet where we applied, and we're hoping to hear back soon. But I do think it's critical because I don't expect to have members back in the church at least until June, and it could be longer than that. And we just don't know whether the online giving is going to continue at the level.
Half a dozen national groups like the Interfaith Alliance sent this letter to SBA saying taxpayer funds may not be used to support religious activities and urging the feds to create best practices for administering the funds.
I think this is an unprecedented change. This is a program administered by a federal government agency that should be attentive to church-state separation issues, that has an obligation to abide by the First Amendment, including the Establishment Clause, and how they administer programs funded with our tax dollars.
The Interfaith Alliance urges congregations to have conversations about separation of church and state and whether to accept federal funds. Both Pastors Moore and Harrison say they had those discussions.
There was some trepidation from some of our leaders about whether or not we should take these funds.
Because I think all churches are a little fearful if you take money from the government. What does that really mean? And will government infringe upon, the beliefs and the practices of the church?
Ultimately, churches we talk with say accepting federal money will allow them to continue paying employees, provide valuable services to the community, and reopen their doors when it's safe to do so. Reporting in Indianapolis, Kara Kenny, RTV6.
The SBA has already approved more than 35,000 Paycheck Protection Program loans in Indiana. But again, as Kara mentioned, SBA is not yet saying how many of those are for churches. And like we mentioned at the top of the show, Governor Holcomb will lift the restrictions on people inside churches on May 8th, except for people 65 and older and those who are in high-risk groups. They are being asked to stay home.